What's up, guys? Mason the Rock Henderson here with a different sort of review. Man, am I embarrassed about this. Yeah, so I completely missed an episode of NCIS this past season. I don't know how, because it's based on the one thing that I was so excited to see the conclusion to, and I just missed it. I don't know how, I don't know why, but yeah, finally, after watching all the season, I was like, why didn't they end it with that Gabriel Hicks story? What happened there? And then I watched that one episode, and I'm just like, oh yeah, okay, I didn't watch this at all. Interesting. So yeah, we'll talk about this. This is episode 15. Keep your enemies closer. And I do remember, I guess, sort of what built up to this in episode 14. I don't remember all of it, but I do remember there was a little bit of Fornell involved because they found out some information about Hicks and the fact that he was possibly guilty, but they didn't have anything concrete. And so Fornell finds out, and then of course he's trying to get involved because he lost his job for this. And so that's kind of what all happened in the past episode. And then at the end, the lawyer for Hicks decides that she's not going to be his lawyer anymore, and then her car blows up, and it's just like, oh, okay. So that's kind of where we pick up in this episode. Obviously, Sloane was right next to her when all that happened, so she's recovering from her wounds. They're trying to figure out how they can tie this to Hicks, but there's really no proof that he had anything to do with it. So now it's kind of a race against the clock as Hicks is slowly taking out everybody involved with his past case. They're trying to find evidence that can link him to it. And ultimately, I think this is probably what makes Hicks possibly the best villain that we've had in the past couple seasons, because you can really see the ties that he has to our characters. The way he taunts Gibbs throughout this episode, strike one, then strike two, and then he leaves a card that says strike three. And it's just kind of these little, it's like he's taunting them, because ultimately they made a mistake. They let him out of prison, and he knows that, and he's loving the fact that he can toy with the NCIS. He loves that fact. And ultimately, in the end, it's really not even NCIS that manages to track him down, because they go to Hicks's old cellmate, who is the guy that tore up the bodies that used to be in McGee's apartment. I do vaguely remember that story. They kind of, when they brought up his name, of course, I didn't remember, but Torres did his little expositional thing that most characters do. Oh, Triff, you mean the guy that marred up all those bodies and put them in McGee's apartment? And I'm like, oh, that's the guy that they're talking about. When you have 15 seasons, sometimes you have to remind us who you're talking about. But yeah, so they have to turn to him because he was Hicks' old cellmate, which in and of itself gives a bit more dynamic, because now McGee has to go talk to this guy again. And he's very, I don't know, I kind of liked him, and I wanted to see more of him as well, because he really does have kind of like a little bit of a quirky nature that made him seem likable as a I guess, anti-hero. Not really a hero, but he asked to be let out. He asked to be put into his old apartment, now McGee's apartment. And so of course they eventually decide that they have to listen because they need his help. And ultimately he realizes that Hicks is going to come for him. And so the best way to do that is to get himself out of prison into a public area that will allow Hicks to track him down, which then will allow NCIS to track him down. But with all that being said, there still are multiple elements that I still feel like could have been done a bit better in this episode. First of all, I do think if they had touched a bit more on Hicks in this episode, because there was a little too much time, I think, spent between McGee and Triff, which if they were building Triff up as kind of a return villain maybe for the rest of this season, I could understand them spending some time there. But ultimately, I've watched the rest of the season, he doesn't show up again, so what was the point of that? At the time, I probably would have been like, ooh, are they maybe going to bring him back? Is he going to become maybe somebody that they turn to a couple episodes later on, and it's like he's maybe trying to work his ways to get out of prison or something along those lines because of good behavior, because they helped him. He helped him track down Hicks. But yeah, none of that happens. He's still in prison. It almost feels like it was kind of done as a joke. By the end of it, he's like, oh, so you want me to be the godfather? All right, I will be the godfather for both of your babies. And it's just like, Is that the whole reason why you brought him back into this, was to do some joke with McGee at the end? I mean, he does help in solving the case, but they spent so much time on him, he felt like he was going to be more important, and then he wasn't. So I'm a little bit disappointed with that. I'm also disappointed in kind of how it all wrapped up. I was hoping they would sort of figure things out, or maybe this would all be Fornell's plan that he set up. But ultimately, what ends up taking the guy down, he goes to McGee's apartment because he knows that's where Triff is being held. McGee, like an idiot, just opens up the door without checking anything. Because that's what good agents do. I get the fact that they don't really realize yet that Hicks is targeting Triff, but you should have a sense to at least check, okay, is anybody out there? There's nobody out there. Something doesn't feel right about this. Let me get my gun out and let me check both sides of the hallway. Something along those lines. Instead of just, oh, doorbell rings, let me open it up. Oh, there's nobody out there. Let me just walk out. Oh, it's just stupid to me. And honestly, I'm surprised Hicks just didn't kill McGee right then and there. But of course, main character, so he's not going to kill him. But yeah, so that was kind of weird. And then it leads to a scene where Triff somehow gets out of the cage. Don't know why. McGee's like, how long has it been unlocked? He's like, I am bleeding out, Agent McGee. And I'm just like, you're not going to answer how long that has been unlocked? How did you know how to unlock it? How did you plan all that? He saves McGee's life, which of course leads to that funny line at the end. But I'm just like, what was all this buildup? It doesn't feel like any of this was planned, even though it kind of was, because it was Triff's plan. But then how did he unlock the cage without any help? And how did he do all of that? That's one thing I wish they'd explained. And it's something that whenever you go up against a villain like Hicks, I want it to be some sort of clever plan that takes him down. Not just, chance coincidence that McGee lets him into his apartment, chance coincidence that Triff somehow found an opportunity to unlock the lock on the cage and then get out and then saves McGee's life. And then while Hicks is driving down the road, Tobias manages to get undone from his restraints, kicks out the back seat, which somehow Triff doesn't hear. Not Triff, Hicks. And then he proceeds to strangle Hicks, and then that causes them to crash, and then they're fighting, and then Gibbs shows up just in the nick of time with the taser. It all just felt way too rushing into it. And this is one where when you're up against a guy like Hicks, when you're up against an intelligent villain that is just planning out things so meticulously and is fooling them at every corner, you want to see them come up with a plan that outthinks him and makes him go, oh crap, they had it all planned out. Not, oh, we're reacting to everything and finally he slips up and makes a mistake when he hasn't made one this entire time. I don't know. I hate it whenever shows do that, when they take a good villain that's very intelligent and just have them make a random mistake. And that's what causes them to lose. That's what causes the good guys to win, is because of a mistake. Not because of something the good guys did to win, but because of a mistake. Ultimately, I think that is the biggest letdown in this episode to me. But with that being said, I mean, Hicks is still a great villain. I hate the fact that it went out on such a low note, just because I feel like he was the highlight of this season. Like I said in the previous review when I talked about the last episode, it was something different. It was something unique. We'd never seen the team make such a big error before. And so to see that, it was like, that's interesting. And then he starts taunting them and messing with them. That was interesting. And then he starts messing with Fornell, and Fornell loses his job because of it. That was interesting. It's character development with a side character that we hardly ever see. I love that. I like whenever they can take these side characters and give them an arc. But then it all sort of ends on this, oh yeah, Fornell gets out of his restraints, kicks out the back seat silently, and then proceeds to strangle him, and then they fight, and then Gibbs shows up just in the nick of time, like always, and saves his life, and that's it. It feels so too cut and dry for me. For such a good villain to have a cut and dry ending, I didn't want that. I wanted it to be something interesting or something difficult or something, clever. And it just wasn't. It wasn't anything clever. Even the twist that, he's going after Triff, That wasn't even something that I'm just like, oh no, he's going after Triff. It was like, as soon as Triff starts talking about, I'm going to help you, I'm like, oh, I see. He got out of prison so that way Hicks would come track him down. That's clever. So I bet he's told McGee about that, and then McGee makes the mistake of going outside without checking. I'm like, oh, so Triff didn't tell them about any of this. He was just like, okay, yeah, I'm just going to lure him in here and then not have any plan set up because I'm so smart. So, yeah, that's about it for this episode. Trying to think if there's anything else on the side. I don't think so. Ultimately, this. I'm glad I got to see the end of this because I would have been very confused, like waiting for something to happen. I still don't know how I made the mistake of missing this episode. But with all that being said, does this change anything about the season for me? Ultimately, no. In fact, it kind of reinforces the point I was making in the last episode, where I just feel like they've run out of ideas, because even with such a good villain setup, such a good backstory to this one, it feels like something you could have dragged on maybe a little bit longer. It feels like something that you could have played the long game for and really made him the bad guy for this season, because he could have been. He was smart enough to, he had enough intelligence to trick the NCIS into getting him out of prison. He could have been a villain that you just stretched out throughout the rest of the season. But instead, they gave him this cliche, tacked-on ending where things just sort of work out for themselves. And that's just, once again, it's the NCIS formula I've seen done so many times. And I wanted something different for that. So, yeah, it kind of reinforces the point I've been making, that they're running out of ideas. They have nothing new, nothing original. And that's disappointing. Because this was the original idea I was excited to see this season. And now I'm just like, oh, well, now it's over. And nothing's new and original. So that's it for, I think, this season as a whole. So that's all of season 15. I know season 16 has already started back. I don't know when I'm going to get around to it, honestly. I'm so far behind, and I just have no time to do anything. I literally had to take a break tonight just because I was so tired. I'm like, you know what, since I'm tired and exhausted, I'm just going to watch some TV and then, review it. And, of course, I didn't like it, so it didn't really make my mood any better. Oh, this is my life now. So anyway, yes, all that being said, those are my thoughts on the season and this episode as a whole. Let me know what you guys think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts overall? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for future NCIS reviews. I'll see you guys whenever I can get to it. To the next season. Peace out.